भगवते भगवते ॐ नमो भगवते भगवते ॐ परमोच्चो प्रभु सत्यं नित्यं त्वामेव केवलम् अनुवर्तामहे सत्यम् अनुजीवामहे केवलम् अनुवर्तामहे सत्यम् अनुजीवामहे केवलम्. Today we are continuing with the advent of the new race part 2C, and it is the revelation of the secret of the new race. As I have mentioned earlier that due to the present emergency crisis of the country and mankind, I was forced to come out of the jurisdiction of my personal life and felt the urge to share with you my perception from a spiritual perspective. Then in due course, I was questioning myself that why am I sharing all this deep material with all of you? Who asked me to do this? I also don't know. But I was inspired to do this one after another joyfully, as if someone was arranging everything around me and guiding each step of my walk and instructing me each word of my talk. Later on, I came across something so beautiful which assured me that why these things are going on, and I was convinced. I'm just quoting you here this small portion of prayers and meditation of the Mother on 15th November 1914, which consequently clarified me the fact that, and which I am quoting here, if the human individual thou hast chosen as thy center of action, and thy intermediary meets with few obstacles, few misunderstandings, and little hatred, it means that thou hast entrusted to him a limited mission without intensity. So, first of all, this human individual thou hast chosen as thy center of action. So, sometimes the divine chooses some individuals for their center of action, or otherwise no divine action can go through. But this intermediary, there are some of the human beings, they meet with the obstacles, sometimes the misunderstanding, and some hatredness also comes on them. So that means that Mother is telling it entrusted to me a limited mission, so very limited work to do, very small things to do. Well, then Mother is writing, it is in the narrow circle of already prepared men of goodwill that he will act, and not upon the chaotic and confused mass of terrestrial substance. So the divine can act. Mother is offering this prayer to the divine. So she is telling that it is in the narrow circle of already prepared men of goodwill, very narrow circle, very small circle, that the divine can act, he will act, and not upon the chaotic and confused mass of terrestrial substance. You can understand who are the confused and chaotic terrestrial mass substance on earth. You can understand that. So she is telling, O divine master, this knowledge which thou hast given me, let us all of us share. Let us all of us share this knowledge which thou hast given me, so that peace of conviction may reign in our hearts. With strong faith, with full confidence, the peace can reign in our hearts, and we may, in the calm of thy sovereign certitude, confront with head held high all that, unconsciously attracted to the transfiguration, plunges headlong into blind ignorance. So you can understand this, that when everyone is unconsciously attracted to a kind of transfiguration and plunges headlong into the blind ignorance, in a very quick, faster way they are going to the blind ignorance. At that moment, if we share this knowledge, what you given to us, so that the peace of conviction may reign in our hearts in this moment. So I felt that's why, even if it is deep or light, I can't differentiate much, but whatever the things are coming, as the divine is using and wants to put it in the right time, in the right way, so let's share it all together. So maybe we'll get the peace of conviction in our heart. Well, so far we have been informed about the workings of normal package, as I have last time in my last episode I have discussed, for the normal people, and the premium package for the premium people, like the gifted artist among men. And now we would like to know if anything else remained for some forerunners among men. Yes, there is a supreme package. There is a supreme package, comes from the supreme, for the people live for the supreme alone. For the most adventurous and courageous people who are ready to take a leap towards a luminous future with certainty in their heart. Here the Lord is the charioteer and the world is the chariot. But today we are in dilemma all around with the normal package of life, because we are not depending on the supreme as yet as a charioteer to drive us, and man consider himself the most capable as the charioteer of this ignorant world till now. So today we are going to hear the secret of the new race of those prepared men of goodwill. As we have seen in the prayers and meditation of the Mother, those prepared men of the goodwill. So there are some people on the earth, those who are prepared and they have a goodwill to share, to go with the fellow people. So it is not like social organizations or NGOs or any kind of charitable organization, but there are the people of spiritual men, those who have goodwill. Those are prepared men of goodwill who believe to live under the grace and strong faith on the divine. Because in this package the language and grammar are in different rhythm, which is much higher than the boundary of humanity. So we always respect the highest religion is the humanity. First, let the man be a perfect human being by perfect humanity is within him. So here the fact is coming that here the language and grammar are in different rhythm, which is much higher than the boundary of humanity. Again, to put one step in this adventurous journey, one has to go beyond all the religions of the humanity. Only where the God leads man, not anymore that the man leads man. You can understand, where the man leads man. I am talking about now the God leads man. Your only guide would be the Supreme Lord alone. But one can also find that presence in everything and everywhere for one's safeguard and confidence. I have no other means to convey these most interesting things other than the questions and answers of the Mother's conversation. On 10th July 1957, Centenary Works of the Mother, Volume 9, where in the page 146 to 152, she is telling these things. Here you will find the interesting relevance of present scenario for your own comparison and clarity, which we have highlighted already in our previous discussion. It is the lockdown of old world. I have already told that it is the lockdown of the old world, and restrictions and all restrictions imposed are symbolic indications to a new directions and new world. That also I have told. So whatever modifications the human super intelligence may bring over the old frame will not hold good anymore unless the man becomes receptive to change himself in the new light. Man may go on trying modifications and restrictions year after year from now onwards to discover the new ways of life which has already peeped into this old world, and hypocrites among men may remain busy to deny its arrival so that the ordinary mundane way of old life can forcefully continue with chaotic confusions. That kind of effort would be there with still some of the people, those who wants to keep their superiority. But let's see here each line of explanation of the mother in this context carefully. Each line is a very, very deeper thing and so interesting, so relevant, so much to the present context. Unbelievable. And I think the whole world listened to these words of the mother which has been spoken that day. But it is very, very relevant, each words. It is quite difficult to free oneself from old habits of being and to be able to freely conceive of a new life, a new world. Mother is telling is, of course, it is quite difficult to free oneself from old habits of being, old habits of the being, and to be able to freely conceive of a new life, a new world. And naturally, the liberation begins on the highest planes of consciousness. You see, the whole purpose of the creation is the freedom and liberation. Whenever the restriction imposition comes, any animal, any species feels very uncomfortable because it is not the natural. The naturally it is given always the liberation and the freedom. So mother is telling us the liberation begins on the highest planes of consciousness. So, but actually the liberation comes when you are in the highest consciousness, not in the lowest consciousness. If you give the liberation as it is happening in the democracy, etc., you can see to that. It is easier for the mind or the higher intelligence to conceive of new things than for the vital being. So normally the mind, because the man has got the mind and got some intelligence, higher intelligence, not this normal intelligence, the higher intelligence, to perceive intuitively. So it can conceive the new things. That is very important. For instance, to feel things in a new way. So the higher intelligence mind can think in a new way. That is very, very important. Everyone cannot think in the new way. Only the higher intelligence mind. It is not the normal intelligence and not the intellectuals. It is the higher intelligence mind coming from a different source. They can only feel things in a new way. And it is still more difficult for the body to have purely material perception of what a new world will be. Yet this perception must precede the material transformation. So before our body receives this material perception, it has to precede with the material transformation. First, one must feel very concretely the strangeness of the old things, their lack of relevance. So the old things has become strange to us. Their lack of relevance, they have lost their relevance. If I may say so, mother is telling, one must have the feeling, even a material impression, that they are outdated, that they belong to a past which no longer has any purpose. For the old impressions, one had of past things which have become historic, which have their interest from that point of view and support the advance of the present and the future. So the history has relevance only for the present and for the future. Otherwise, it is no longer has any purpose. This is still a movement that belongs to the old world. It is the old world that is unfolding with a past, a present, a future. But for the creation of a new world, there is, so to speak, only a continuity of transition which gives an appearance. It's a very important and interesting things mother is telling, that for the creation of a new world, continuity of transition, we are in a period of transition from an old world to a new world. So a continuity of transition only has to continue. Suppose we stop here, nowhere to go. It is all lockdown, all corona has engulfed us. So we are nowhere. But a continuation is required. a transition in this period. This is a transition period where the continuation is very, very important, and one should know, the humanity should know where to give importance, whom to give importance, and what should be opened and what should be under lockdown. That is also very important, which probably we have forgotten. Well, an impression rather, which gives an appearance, what like an impression rather, the impression of two things still intermingled but almost disconnected. So it is intermingled, the two worlds are intermingled but almost disconnected, and that the things of the past no longer have the power or the strength to endure, and the things of the past has no longer the power or strength to endure with whatever modifications in the new things. That other world is necessarily an absolutely new experience. One would have to go back to the time when there was a transition from the animal to the human creation to find a similar period. From the animal, from the orangutan, monkey, how the human being came. Of course, that time human being was not there to advise the creator, but human being was created. So that period, how it was, and at that time the consciousness was not sufficiently mentalized because human being was not there to be able to observe, understand, feel intelligently. The passage must have been made in a completely obscure way. That time the passage of this monkey to man must be in a completely obscure way. So what I am speaking about is absolutely new, Mother is telling, unique in the terrestrial creation. So this is what is going to happen just now. It's a very new and unique thing in the terrestrial creation. It is something unprecedented, truly a perception or a sensation or an impression that is quite strange and new. Then the matter comes, a disconnection between the old world and the new world. Something which has overstayed its time and has only quite a subordinate force of existence. The new world which would have come probably little before, but it is being long over delayed. So Mother is telling something which has overstayed its time and has only quite a subordinated force of existence from something totally new, but still so young, so imperceptible, almost weak, so to say. It has not yet the power to impose and assert itself, to predominate, to take the place of the other. It has not come to that form that it can predominate or to take the place of the other old world. So there is a concomitance, but both the world need each other. So there is a concomitance, but as I said, with a disconnection, that is, the connection between the two is missing. It is difficult to describe, but I am speaking to you about it because this is what I felt yesterday evening. I felt it so acutely that it made me look at certain things, and once I had seen them, I felt it would be interesting to tell you about them. Mother also feels to tell it, express it about that. It seems, Mother is telling, it seems strange that something so new, so special, and I might say so unexpected should happen during a film show for people who believe that some things are important and other things are not. That there are activities which are helpful to yoga and others which are not. Well, this is one more opportunity to show that they are wrong. I have always noticed that it is unexpected things which give you the most interesting experiences. Mother is telling, yesterday evening, suddenly something happened which I have just described to you as best as I could. I don't know if I have succeeded in making myself understood, but it was truly quite new and altogether unexpected. We were shown comparatively clumsily a picture of the temple on the banks of the Ganges and the statue of Kali, for I suppose it was a photograph of that statue. I could not manage to get any precise information about it, and while I was seeing that, which was a completely superficial appearance, and as I said, rather clumsy, I saw the reality. It was trying to represent what was behind. So Mother is telling that behind the pictures she was seeing, what is the reality, which we miss to see, but she is seeing that, and then she is describing, and this put me in touch with all that world of religion and worship, of aspiration, man's whole relationship with the gods So she is seeing like a film behind it, that man's whole relationship with the gods. We know about it, which was, I am already speaking in the past tense. Mother is telling I am speaking in the past tense, which was the flower of the human spiritual effort towards something more divine than man. So man was putting effort from a long time. There's something more divine which is more than man. So that aspiration was there. That kind of labor is already put in this religious structure, in his relationship with the gods. Something which was the highest and almost the purest expression of his effort towards what is higher than he. So his effort was something for the what is higher than he. And suddenly I had concretely, materially the impression that it was another world. A world that has ceased to be real, living an outdated world which had lost its reality, this world of religion. Its truth, which had been transcended, surpassed by something which had taken birth and was only beginning to express itself. But so now that old world has, as if it is transcended, surpassed by something which had taken birth and was only beginning to express itself. So the new world which has slowly entered and coming up, rising up, so that is only beginning to express itself. So the new world is expressing. So we are just only the means to express this thing, this secret of that new race. So this is what the work we are little doing. That we are beginning to express that thing, which is probably not was covered, but we are trying now only to beginning to express itself. But whose life was so intense? That new world life was so intense, so true, so sublime, that all this became false, unreal, worthless. All this becomes this old world. This old religious world became false, unreal, and worthless. Now, at present. Then I truly understood, for I understood not with the head, the intelligence, but with the body. You understand what I mean? I understood in the cells of the body that a new world is born and is beginning to grow. Well, I announced to you all that this new world was born, but it has been so engulfed, as it were, in the old world, that so far the difference has not been very perceptible to many people. So the difference between the old world and the new world is not perceptible to many people. Still, the action of the new forces has continued very regularly, very persistently, very steadily, and to a certain extent, very effectively. Truly, so very new, and one of the manifestation of this action was my expression, Mother is telling, of yesterday evening. And the result of all this I have noted step by step in almost daily experiences. It could be expressed succinctly in a rather linear way. First, it is not only a new conception of spiritual life and the divine reality. This conception was expressed by Aurobindo. I have expressed it myself many a time, Mother is telling, and it could be formulated somewhat like this. The old spirituality was an escape from life into the divine reality. The old spirituality was an escape from life into the divine reality, leaving the world just where it was. Whereas our new vision, on the contrary, is a divinization of life, a transformation of the material world into a divine world. This material world into a divine world. This has been said, repeated, more or less understood. Indeed, it is the basic idea of what we want to do. But this could be a continuation with an improvement, a widening of the old world. So, a widening, broadening of the old world as it was. And so long as this is a conception of there in the field of thought, in fact, it is hardly more than that. But what has happened? The really new thing is that a new world is born. Born, Mother is telling. It is not the old one transforming itself. It is a new world which is born. And we are right in the midst of this period of transition where the two are entangled. So we are in the period of exactly in the transition where the two are entangled. We are not able to differentiate. We are not able to perceive even. Where the other still persists, all powerful, entirely dominating the ordinary consciousness, the old world. It still persists, all powerful and entirely dominating the ordinary consciousness. You can see what is the news in the world and in the country. But where the new one is quietly sleeping in, is just sleeping inside, still very modest, unnoticed. It is not noticeable yet, and it is remaining unnoticed. Unnoticed to the extent that outwardly doesn't disturb anything very much. Outwardly doesn't disturb anyone for the time being. And that in the consciousness of most people, it is even altogether imperceptible. And yet, it is working, growing, until it is strong enough to assert itself visibly. So, it is working and growing. Allow it to work and grow until it is strong enough to assert itself visibly. So, if someone asks what is happening in this spiritual organization, what these people are doing, so it will not be visible so easily. It takes time. It takes a preparation which is not visible. It is not perceptibly visible. So, this kind of questions are also irrelevant. Well, in any case, to simplify things, it could be said that characteristically, the old world, the creation of what Aurobindo calls the overmind, was an age of the gods. Overmind is basically the age of the gods, where the Sri Krishna is the immanent divine. And consequently, the age of religions. As I said, the flower of human effort towards what is above, it gave rise to innumerable religious forms, to a religious relationship between the best souls and the invisible world. So we have heard a lot of stories, incidents in Upanishads, in Puranas, where the best souls have the relationship with the invisible worlds, with those worlds, world of the gods. And at the very summit of all that, as an effort towards a higher realization, there has arisen the idea of the unity of religions. This is a great thing. The idea of the unity of religions, of this one single thing which is behind all these manifestations. All these manifestations of different kind of religions, from different creed, from different color, from different sections, but one single thing. And this idea has truly been, so to speak, the extreme limit of human aspiration. Where the extreme limit of human aspiration is the idea of the unity of religions. There is only one religion. Well, that is at the frontier, that is at the edge. It is something that still belongs completely to the overmind world. So this was up to the optimum of the overmind world, the overmind creation, and which from there seems to be looking towards the other thing. So from the overmind creation, those who have reached overmind creation, those who have reached those God and goddesses in the overmind, so from there seems to be looking towards this other thing, which is, means other side, which is a new creation. It cannot grasp. The overmind cannot grasp, which it tries to reach, feels coming, but cannot grasp. So the overmind gods are also trying to reach what is the new creation, but still it cannot grasp. To grasp it, a reversal is needed. Mother is telling. So Mother is telling it is necessary to leave the overmind creation. It was necessary that the new creation, the supramental creation, should take place. So what is the new world? Is the supramental creation by the supermind. So the dwellers are the supermind. And now, all these old things seem so old, so out of date, so arbitrary, such a travesty of the real truth. So that is why when you see this world now, including the relationship with the God and goddesses, all these old things seem so old, so out of date, so arbitrary, that such a travesty of the real truth. It looks like sometimes it looks like whatever happening in the name of religion today, it looks like a farce. It looks like a comedy show going on, because it is far from the real truth. It goes very far from the real truth in the name of the religion, as on today. In the supramental creation, there will be no longer there will no longer be any religions. The whole life will be the expression, the flowering into forms of the divine unity manifesting in the world. So whole life will be engaged in what? The divine unity manifesting in the world. And there will no longer be what men now call gods. So that time there will not be a big difference between gods and men. So what will happen? These great divine beings themselves will be able to participate in the new creation. These great divine beings which we call today gods, which we are worshipping, they themselves from that overmind sphere will be able to participate in this new creation. But to do so, they will have to put on what we could call the supramental substance, which is already descended as supramental force, which is already descended in the earth already. So that substance on earth, which is available now on earth, so they have to put on that. And if some of them choose to remain in their world as they are, there are many gods, they are happy in their world, so they may like to choose that to remain there only. If they decide not to manifest physically, their relation with the beings of supramental earth will be. But there will be some beings on the earth which will be prepared for the supramental. So their relationship with the beings of a supramental earth will be a relation of friends, collaborators, equals for the highest divine essence, will be manifested in the beings of the new supramental world on earth. When the physical substance is supramentalized, to incarnate on earth will no longer be a cause of inferiority. Quite the contrary. So God and goddesses, if they take incarnation on earth, right now with those physical substance of the supramental, so it will not be an inferior birth. It will not be a question of any inferiority. But on the contrary, it will give a plenitude which cannot be obtained otherwise. So it will give such a plenitude of stuff here on earth now after the supramental substance that it will not be available any other worlds other than this world. But all this is in the future. It is a future which has begun, but which will take some time to be realized integrally. Meanwhile, we are in a very special situation, extremely special, without precedent. Mother is telling, we are right now in a very special situation, extremely special, without precedent. We are now witnessing the birth of a new world. We are witnessing it. It is a very young, very weak, not in its essence. In its essence, it is not weak. It is very perfect in its essence. But in its manifestation, it looks like weak. Not yet recognized, not even felt, denied by the majority. And the majority will deny it. We do not know what is going on, who bothers for it. So majority denies it. But it is here. It is here making an effort to grow. Absolutely sure of the result. But the road to it is a completely new road which has never before been traced out. Nobody has gone there. Nobody has done that. It is a beginning, a universal beginning. So it is an absolutely unexpected and unpredictable adventure. There are people who love adventure. It is this I call and I tell them this. I invite you to the great adventure. Mother is telling, to these people who love adventure, it is these I call and I tell them this. I invite you to the great adventure. Probably this is what is the message we are all supposed to convey and to share each other. So that is why we are started somewhere and we are coming towards this, that Mother is telling, I invite you to that great adventure. It is not a question of repeating spiritually what others have done before us. It is not repeating the same thing spiritually what others have done already. For our adventure begins beyond that. It is a question of a new creation, entirely new, with all the unforeseen events, the risks, the hazards it entails. It gives a lot of hazard, it may give also. A real adventure whose goal is certain victory, but the road to which is, Mother is telling, keep it in mind that whose goal is certain victory, but the road to which is unknown and must be traced out step by step in the unexplored. It is not explored that time. Something that has never been in this present universe and that will never be again in the same way. If that interests you, well, let's embark. What will happen to you tomorrow? I have no idea. One must put aside all that has been foreseen. Put aside whatever is in your mind. Mother is telling that one must put aside all that has been foreseen, all that has been devised, all that has been constructed, and then set off walking into the unknown. What a great thing. Set off walking into the unknown. What a welcome by the Divine Mother. And come, what may there. So that is what the Mother gave the message. Wonderful conversation. Very, very wonderful. God, I give a lot of importance to this message. That's why I brought this to all of you to share. It may happen on 10 July 1957. But today also it is perfectly relevant. It is as if Mother is reminding once again to all the people who think themselves that we know all this, but probably they might have forgotten or they might have kept it aside for the time being. But it is again to renew in their mind that yet till the time is there and we can renew ourselves, we can re-energize ourselves to prepare ourselves for the adventure once again, where Mother is calling for the adventurous journey. So now the question is, do the men have that adaptable receiver or transmitter to transform oneself as per the norms of the supreme package given by the Supreme Creator? As I told you, this is the supreme package we are talking about today. Let's know how we are carrying within ourselves the most precious elements in our being, but we are ignorant about it. This is the question being put to the Mother, and she has explained it so lucidly. So once again I am coming to the Mother's words. Sweet Mother, is there a spiritual being in everybody? Then Mother is answering. That depends on what we call being. If for being we substitute presence, so instead of being, if you substitute presence, yes, there is a spiritual presence in everyone. If we call being an organized entity, he is a being, that is a being, an organized entity, full conscious of itself, independent, and having the power of asserting itself and ruling the rest of the nature. No. So that kind of being is not yet. Not everybody, but not everyone. But the possibility of this independent and all-powerful being is in everybody. But everybody carries that possibility that one day he will become an independent and all-powerful being. I will tell you later on that what we call the psychic being in every human being. So that is a personality which is formed in birth after birth. About that we will discuss later on. But Mother is indicating here very fundamental manner, in a basic thing, the possibility of this independent and all-powerful being is in everybody. But the realization is the result of long efforts which sometimes extend over many lives. In everyone, at the very beginning, this spiritual presence, this inner light is there. In fact, it is everywhere. As I told in the Mother's Om, that one light, a spiritual presence comes. That is what is then the life forms. Similarly, so this spiritual presence, this inner light is there. In fact, it is everywhere. I have seen it many a time in certain animals, Mother is telling. It is like a shining point, which is the basis of a certain control and protection. So this inner light, like a shining point, which is the basis of certain control and protection in every being. Every external being, what you see, the external form, in that it contains that presence. This presence itself is a certain control and protection for that external being. Something which even in half consciousness makes possible a certain harmony with the rest of creation. So that exists, and because of that there is harmony in the rest of the creation. So the creation beyond you is still in harmony because something within you which carries that equal presence with everyone. So that creates an harmony. So that irreparable catastrophes may not be constant and general. So Mother is coming here to an irreparable catastrophes may not be constant and general. So catastrophe will not be always, because there is something which is the presence which is there within everyone, which is making possible the certain kind of harmony and with the rest of the creation. So beyond human species or beyond the other species, there are other forces, but it cannot work because you have a protection because of that presence. And without this presence, the disorder created by the violence and passions, of the vital would be so great that any moment they could bring about a general catastrophe, a sort of total destruction which would prevent the progress of nature even. But why it is not happening? Because of this presence. Somewhere or the other, this presence is stopping all these things. That presence, that spiritual light, Mother is telling, which could almost be called a spiritual consciousness, is within each being and all things, and because of it, in spite of all discordance, all passion, all violence, there is a minimum general harmony which allows nature's work to be accomplished. So there is a harmony which allows nature's work to be accomplished. Sun rising and moon is coming in time. There is a tide and waves in the sea. The breeze is nicely blowing over us. So here nature, whatever is supposed to give, is interruptedly giving us beautifully, because somewhere there's something which is really maintaining that harmony. And this presence becomes quite obvious in the human being. And this, now Mother is telling that this presence is quite obvious in human being. It is perfectly suits to the human being in the form of psychic being, which will come later. Even the most rudimentary, it is a very elementary thing even. That presence in the human being. Even in the most monstrous human being, in one who gives the impression of being an incarnation of a devil or a monster, there is something within exercising a sort of irresistible control. So even if it is a monstrous, so there is a sort of, this presence giving a sort of irresistible control. Even in the worst, some things are impossible, he will not do. And without this presence, if the being were controlled exclusively by the adverse forces, the forces of the vital, if there would not have been this presence and the beings would have been under the content, this impossibility would not exist. Even the word impossibility would not even exist. Each time a wave of, mark these lines now, each time a wave of these monstrous adverse forces sweeps over the earth, a wave of these monstrous adverse forces sweeps over the earth, one feels that nothing can ever stop the disorder and horror from spreading, and always at a certain time. See, look at the words, how it is similar to the coronavirus, second wave, third wave, whatever you say. So one feels that nothing can ever stop the disorder and horror from spreading, and always at a certain time, unexpectedly and inexplicably, a control intervenes, and the wave is arrested. The catastrophe is not total, and this is because of the presence, the supreme presence in matter. But only in a few exceptional beings, after a long, very long work of preparation, extending over many, many lives, do this presence change into a consciousness. Independent, fully organized being, all powerful master of his dwelling place, conscious enough, powerful enough to be able to control not only this dwelling, but what surrounds it, and in a field of radiation and action that is more and more extensive and effective. That is why this is what the Mother gives the message. The Mother, volume 9, 18 June 1958. So this is what Mother is telling, that we should give importance to this presence. Intervention of this presence which is there. So we should give a notice to it. Whenever, even if we do lockdown, even if we go for restrictions or input, but we should not fail to give chance or importance wherever there is an aspiration. There are group of people, spiritual people, those who are together to aspire. They have the goodwill, and they should be kept, given the chance, opportunity open to continue their practice, to continue their prayer, continue their effort, by which this presence will intervene and control the situation and bring it to a harmony. So that is what the governance should understand, where to give importance and what is to be given importance, and what is to be kept under complete lockdown and what is not to be kept and still to be given access to continue all these things. So this is to be continued in part 3a as manifestation of the new race. We have completed the secret of the new race almost, so whatever maximum possible. in the mother's word. And you can see in all these episodes are whenever one can see in YouTube search as Krishnendu Aurobindo Ashram. So today with this I will aspire that let us concentrate together to invoke this presence which will control and bring harmony to the earth in this adverse situation also. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukha bhag bhave.